Hey guys, as we start creeping a little bit deeper into the fall here, we're starting to get an influx in off-season baseball players coming in to get their training started, okay? So I have some notes up here on kind of what our phase one looks like as far as some of the things that we really try to highlight, really try to stress with our off-season baseball players, okay? So I have up here the word quality underlined. Quality is really the first thing we're taking a look at, whether it is looking at our guys during their assessment or during this first phase here. Our first phase can be anywhere from 4 weeks to 6 weeks, kind of depending on how long one of the baseball players has before tryouts start for them. So if you were a guy who would come in right now, your phase one might look a little bit different. It might be a little bit longer since we have a little bit longer period of time before tryouts are going to start for you in the new year coming up, okay? So again, some of the quality that we're looking for. First things first here, tissue quality, okay? When we talk about tissue quality, we're talking about mobility, okay? We're talking about stability, and we're talking about symmetry. So everybody that comes in is gonna complete an initial assessment or eval. During that eval, we're gonna kind of get some of these mobility pieces figured out. So as a coach, I will know where some of our athletes struggle as far as that mobility piece goes and where some of them really excel. And then when we get their program figured out for them, we're gonna use that information when we are writing it, okay? Going along with that mobility piece, all right, is stability. The stability factor is kind of the missing link a lot of the times with that mobility piece. A lot of athletes want to stretch, and create some of this passive mobility through their joints, but they really open themselves up to injury if they create a bunch of mobility, but they cannot stabilize at those new end ranges of motion. So along with the mobility piece, we really want to make sure that we are working on our athlete's ability to stabilize those new ranges of motion that we're creating. And lastly, as far as the tissue quality goes, all right, symmetry. Now, with baseball players especially, we know that it's a unilateral sport, so a pitcher might be right-handed or left-handed, and they also might hit that side, so that might create some asymmetries. And as a coaching staff here at SSP, we need to figure out if those asymmetries are things that we need to address and that are inhibiting an athlete's ability to play, or if some of those asymmetries may be sport-specific asymmetries that athlete has developed over time and that actually allows them to excel at their sport. So I put symmetry in here in air quotes because sometimes these symmetries can be good for the athlete and other times they can hurt them or inhibit their performance. So it's our job as coaches to kind of wade through those ideas that we are, or those asymmetries that we are seeing on an athlete when they come in for their eval, okay? And trying to put some of the pieces of the puzzle together as far as what's helping them and what's hurting them. Let's go ahead, we'll move on to the next piece here. It's movement quality, all right? So again, with our athletes, we come in and the very first thing we do is screen them. And then as we are getting them acclimated to the workouts, as we're getting them acclimated to some of the new movements we may be asking of them, okay, we're gonna make sure that their movement quality is up to snuff, all right? Again, a big problem that I see right now is athletes coming in, they don't have some of these movements down, exercises, maybe it's a running technique, maybe it's a squat technique, something like that, and then they are wanting to really load those movement patterns that may be incorrect. So before we can load a movement pattern, we really need to make sure that we have that movement quality down. So the first kind of movements that we are looking at are linear and lateral movement-based things. So it could be a sprint, it could be a crossover step, it could be a shuffle. Again, think unloaded here, movement patterning, stuff that you might see when you're on the field or on the court. Okay, once we've kind of feel like we have our guys at a spot that they're good there, then we're gonna start working through some basic plyometrics, okay? So that might be snap downs, that might be depth drops, that might be hurdle jumps, okay? Very controlled with these initial plyometrics. Again, we want to progress to more complex movements, but we got to make sure that we have that foundational piece there before we can go ahead and do that. All right, and then lastly, obviously we're looking at things like squat technique, push-up technique, lunge technique, all these other kind of more basic strength exercises. All right, a lot of times athletes will complete these in just body weight form right off the bat, and then we'll start loading them according to what that movement is looking like. All right, and the last thing that we're really looking for as far as quality goes is quality recovery. And a lot of times these are techniques that we need to get the athletes in the habit of doing. All right, so baseball players especially have been really working on crazy schedules all summer, even back to the springtime, all right, of the last school year. And now a lot of them are into fall baseball where they're traveling a ton, eating on the road, sleeping in hotels. So we really want to make sure that we are hammering their kind of day-to-day habits. So nutrition first and foremost, all right, quality foods, all right, making sure our athletes are hitting some body composition goals, or at least on the road to hitting those goals, okay? So a lot of our guys need to gain weight. So we'll talk through some nutrition techniques in order for them to gain that weight. Okay, the second thing here is sleep habits. Are they getting 8 hours of sleep every night, or are they getting 5 hours of sleep every night? If they are on that lower end of the spectrum, then that's some of the low-hanging fruit that we can really try to have them make a conscious effort to get more sleep, and that will allow them to really feel like their workouts are being enhanced just by adding a couple more hours of sleep each night. And then lastly, hydration here, okay? Making sure our athletes are really aiming for an ounce of water per pound of body weight. We want them to make sure that they are making a conscious effort, again, to hydrate, because we know that once we are dehydrated, our performance numbers drop markedly. So we want to make sure that we're pushing water and making sure that they are thinking about that throughout the day, whether they are at a tournament or at school or just hanging out on the weekends. All right, so again, with phase one here, we are really focusing on quality tissue, quality movement, and quality recovery.